Welcome back to AOL, the Anatomy of Life podcast, a podcast that has a unique perspective on health, resilience, and living with intention, and on a mission to whole person health. Now, unlike other health and wellness podcasts, this one brings a fresh approach that challenges mainstream ideas and dives into many dimensions of life. The intention is to help you improve, grow, transform, and manifest in all areas of your life.
Now, before delving into the opening episode for season 2, in season 1 of AOL, we defined what the word health meant to us, understanding that our health is the complete picture from what we eat to what we talk about, who we hang out with, and what we do for a living. AOL's focus for season 2 is on relationships, both in the way that we as a society talk about relationships and then also beyond the traditional sense of the word. This is where we not only include interactions with healthcare, lifestyle, self-care practices, stress, music, education, career, creativity, finances, our physical activity, and food, but it also includes our relationship to ourselves, our partners, friends, and our family. Let's get into it. Ubuntu, an ancient African proverb. I am what I am because of who we all are. I must have been about 6 or 7, maybe a little older, but not older than 10 years old. I was staring in the mirror, my nose almost touching the glass. I was that close. Watching my face change as I smiled or frowned, as I widened my eyes or scrunched up my nose. It was fascinating to watch my face and its lines and curves. I looked at the girl in the mirror with such curiosity. I stared at her, studying her ever so closely. Who was she? Why was she looking back at me? And what did she want? You're listening to the Anatomy of Life podcast, a podcast that cherishes the truths about our lives, an exploration of what it truly means to be well, starting with the relationship you have with yourself, how you perceive and connect with your own identity, body, and mind. This is part 1 of a 3-part Relationship to Self and Others series. These will be aired intermittently between the episodes with our experts this season. Now, we all know I love a good definition. So the word relationship, according to ChatGPT, is the way in which 2 or more people, concepts, or things are connected or interact with each other. It can encompass a wide range of associations and connections, depending on the context. We are observers when we are children, observing the world and trying to make sense of how we fit into that world. Social cues cause us to change ourselves. For example, when your parents or caregivers prompted you to say hello to strangers when you were younger, or give that uncle or auntie a hug. We were taught how to behave, and we call them social norms. Saying please and thank you, or greeting a fellow human along a path when we are walking. We're not in agreement to societal truths. We look for recognition from our fellow humans to be sure we are falling in line and not upsetting the way of life we have all grown accustomed to and controversially molded and groomed to be. If you pack away your toys, you're a good child. If you say please and thank you, you are a polite person. If you put someone before yourself in a line, you are noble. If you give way to someone to pass you, or you give money to the homeless, you are kind-hearted. And if you say no, you are difficult. If you disagree, you are not conforming. So we aim to stay clear of the negative social cues and ultimately become people pleasers. In severe cases, as we grow into adulthood, some people may experience a parent or parents or caregivers that will push them into one type of direction career-wise, whether or not you as an individual would have liked it or not. We get taught that our elders know us best and therefore have the right to dictate the direction and trajectory of our lives because, well, they've roamed the earth longer than us. This is a key component to this episode because as we form an identity about ourselves, these actions around us, the decisions made on our behalf, often hinder our ability to get to know ourselves outside of what we get told. They hinder our ability to form ideas about the world on our own. Now, I'm not trying to say having a structured upbringing or rules are irrelevant. Quite the contrary. The rules are there to guide us, But I feel the rule should include a cardinal rule that above all, stay true to you. So if something feels off, out of whack, or not aligned, that we have the freedom to say so, be heard, whether misunderstood or not, we should be seen. What we know for sure is that a name is assigned to us at birth, a house if we're lucky, and people within that house to help feed and clothe us until we are of a certain age where we can take care of ourselves. But nobody teaches us to get to know ourselves, not just from the colors we like, the food we like to eat, and the music we like to listen to, but rather, nobody teaches us, or rather, in my case at least, I wasn't really given the tools on how to set healthy boundaries when I felt threatened, unsafe, unsure, sad, angry, or hurt. I mimicked what I saw around me, and that was to bite my tongue, swallow my pride, stay silent, feel scared and small, and that I was not able to defend myself because either I was too physically weak, unable to express myself intelligently, or I was just not significant enough to be heard, seen, or taken seriously. I was taught, or rather saw around me, evidence that I was meant to allow other people to be happy, thrive, and that my happiness and zest for life had to take a backseat so that the greater humankind could flourish. Whilst being an observer in my own life, I am thankful that I had the sense and freedom of mind and thought to notice certain behaviors as wrong. I could feel it in my body when something was amiss, and somehow in my lineage, I got the outspoken gene. So I would often speak out against injustice. I also thankfully have a feeling that I was to be a contributor to the human race, that my happiness did mean something, and that I had something to say. I was so young when having these thoughts, and my gosh, am I proud for having those thoughts. That my voice needed to be heard, and that I would make a difference in the world, no matter how small. I was what society might call today a disruptor, a nonconformist, difficult, or perhaps even arrogant. Or as I've been told before, you have an attitude, Lex. All names and labels that were meant to help identify me, but at what cost? At whose peril? And by which standard? I knew that none of it mattered, that it wasn't who I really was, and that people could label me whatever they wanted, and that it was none of my business, but rather a reflection of their inability on their part to connect to themselves. But it still haunted me. The labels still hurt. The name calling cut deep, and I ultimately fell into the trap, like all of us do. The reason for falling in the trap was that I lacked a relationship with myself. You wouldn't catch me anywhere by myself. In school, if not glued to my sister, I was with a close friend. If that wasn't the case, I was with my mom. And after my mom, my husband. There was always someone there. But underneath the surface, I was alone. I felt misunderstood. I was always identified to be with someone at all times. No one really knew me as a standalone entity. When my sister, mom, and husband weren't around and I was alone, I didn't know how to sit in my own company and be in my own skin. It was like sitting in a room with a stranger. As the years have passed and I've been unlearning the views that others painted of me, it has created space for me to reintroduce myself not only to the world, but more importantly, to me. Here's a few things I've discovered, and I'll explain how I got to these things. Some may seem obvious, and then others not so obvious. And as you listen through these points, perhaps they will spark a similarity in you or cause you to start using this language to filter out the noise of the world and start identifying yourself on your own terms. I love hot tea. I like anything hot, comforting drinks. There's a ritual around warm drinks. It's like a hug from the inside. I take long, deep breaths when enjoying my warm drinks because it's meditative to me. I like being close to water and the smell of the ocean, a fresh breeze when it hits my skin. I love the way the air flows through my nose. It's grounding. It feels like home to be close to water. The air feels safe and makes me feel like I'm part of something. I love music. I can't describe how much I love music, how much I need music. The codependency on music is my latest codependency. One I don't mind and don't ever want to be apart from. Music is a fluent language. It's a form of escapism for me. I like creating or making things. It's definitely my thing. Creation is something I'm yet to master, or to perhaps I'm not to master it, but develop the skill of creation. Creation forces me to slow down, think, and plan, to not merely react. And I've been very reactive in the many years leading me to this very moment. I love travel. I was born to travel and listen to music. I like who I am when I travel. I see the world with novice eyes, new places, and people make me ponder about the human race. It makes me feel connected. I like myself and the way I like to let people feel seen, heard, included, and understood, like they belong. That's my favorite trait about myself, letting someone feel like they belong. I'm the person I needed all my life. The way I show up fiercely for others, the way I defend my friends and family, is the way I wish to be defended. This one is an everyday practice, learning the difference between kind and people pleaser. I no longer feel the need to please. I am happy on my own and in my own skin, and I'm finally happy letting people think as they wish to think because I know who I am, what I stand for, and what I will and will not tolerate. I no longer feel the need to prove myself. That was my predisposition my whole life, and it was exhausting. Maybe this sounds like you. I found that time, space, and energy cultivate as they should, when they should, and all in good time. I'm relearning my overall design. I lost my way, or never really saw my own way, because I was trying to fit in that which I was told of who I am, who I'm meant or supposed to be. I don't like alcohol. I pretended really well, I might add, that I liked alcohol. But in all honesty, it doesn't stir any joy in me. And it's that simple. I won't explain it and no longer care who takes offense to it. It is, after all, my body, my well being. And as long as that's the case, as long as I have to live with this body and mind and soul for the rest of my life, what I choose to do with it is exactly that, my prerogative. I am an extremely deep human being. Surface level makes me cringe. And I do the surface level stuff because I understand human nature, but I cannot pretend that surface level makes me tick. I read energy the way I read books. It's easy for me to figure someone out quite quickly. It wasn't always the case because I couldn't get in touch with my intuition. I always put my super happy, jovial persona first because that's who I am innately at my core. I love to smile, laugh, and play. That's where I find the most happiness. And I must be honest, I've got to give credit and props to my mom because she loves to smile, laugh, and play. I'm outrageously resilient. Now, without sounding, if not already, like an absolute self absorbed human, here's a little background as to how I began unraveling this relationship to myself. Now, it's not the whole story, but it is worth mentioning, and perhaps you can see some similarities that may help you peel back your layers to see yourself and appreciate where you are at and reintroduce yourself to you. So, when I was at school, I often felt left out, but made a really good impression that probably didn't make people think that I felt left out. The feeling stemmed from knowing that I didn't quite understand how I fit in anywhere due to my background. Now, seeing as I'm a colored girl that looks white, my relationship with my identity has always been quite a sensitive topic for me. I wasn't ever sure how to behave in school or how to present to the world. So, as we all do, we mirror or we mimic what we see around us. But what I saw around me felt so foreign. I often felt like an outsider looking in and often felt like I needed to prove my existence. I guess that might stem from being the youngest of two, and the youngest was most likely invisible to the world, almost like the little cute toy in the corner that everybody's happy to be around, but then doesn't really pay much attention to. So I found myself being a modern day jester, constantly trying to make people around me smile or laugh just so that they would notice me, find me funny, and want to be around me. Ironically, I despise fitting in now. I find it quite repulsive. And I used to think that I always needed someone around me. Now I realize all I need was to be comfortable in my own skin. I grew up super close to my sister. We were semi inseparable, and I found comfort in knowing that she was always close by. But I soon realized that through events that occurred in our lives, that I needed to learn to stand on my own. I needed to look out for myself. I needed to advocate for myself because ultimately we all go our separate ways to lead and live separate lives. I know I have what they call the father wound. So insecurity, stability, and safety for me is all I craved, most of which eluded me most of the time. Now that I've done and continue to do my intensive inner work on myself, I have found that the security, safety, and stability is within me and not around me or alive in someone else. I only learned this through trials and tribulations. And this is why I'm such a fierce fan of failure. Yes, you heard me right. I'm not afraid to fail because I've done so much failing and have noticed that the sun still comes up and life carries on, and no one really cares about your failures or your successes for that matter. So why worry? Why waste tremendous and valuable energy on pondering over failure? I get up and move on as quickly as I possibly can. I'm not ignoring the failure or sidestepping it, but I'm viewing it for what it truly is, a lesson in my resilience, in my ability to overcome and see better, see clearer, and move smoother through this beautiful life. Now, have you ever watched people around you? Maybe someone was, talking to themselves, or someone having a fight on the phone, or someone crying. Watch someone in a group setting. Well, maybe you've seen that person talking to themselves, and then once observing these people in what we call people watching, have you ever thought, I wonder what made that person react that way? Or I wonder how they identify themselves. Because I certainly know that people have seen me aggressive, but I don't identify as aggressive or angry or hurt. But if someone straight off the bat asked me who I am, I could only but tell them my name, where I grew up, my race, and what I do for a living. But that is just surface level versions. But that is just the surface level version of me. That is just the surface level of you. If someone asked me how my relationship to my sister, my mother, my father, my husband, and my friends, I could easily tell them. But I couldn't tell you, or at least up until making this episode, who I was at my core and how I perceived myself. The relationship with myself was so far back in my everyday being that I totally lost who I was. I needed to find my way back to me, to the girl in the mirror who I so fondly stared at in awe and with great curiosity. And that makes my chest hurt, that I left her behind, that I left her at the mirror waiting for me to say hi, and that it's okay, and we're going to figure this out together, and to say to her that I'm going to protect you and learn all I need to learn for us to thrive. And this is how self-connection is often overlooked. By having the perception of others put in front of us, how they see us is how we then begin to identify. Yes, I am sweet, I am kind, honorable, and all those things. But I'm also strong, vivacious, open minded, self driven, semi daredevil, outspoken, and a self warrior advocate. I deserve it. You deserve it. We all deserve self recognition, for we are and will always be our only home. Outside recognition is short lived, it's often disappointing, unfulfilling, and a waste of energy. Our self awareness is foundational to all other relationships. Without it, we risk projecting our insecurities, our unmet needs, and our unresolved emotions onto others, creating misunderstandings and conflicts and inauthentic connections. I say this as a recovering people pleaser myself. When we learn ourselves, we learn how to engage in healthy conversations. We learn how to process difficult emotions. We learn how to meet our needs and not rely on outside sources to do so. Knowing your boundaries can help you identify what is for you and what is not for you, saving you on unwanted behavioral patterns from others as you would steer clear of them in order to move forward in your life. Now, how to get to this state is not a destination, it's an ongoing practice. But if left unpracticed, can become a pressure cooker and be so overwhelming that you can so easily fall into an unfulfilled, unhappy, negative lifestyle, settling for less, never growing and exploring the multifaceted human being you are that will lead to so many missed opportunities in life. Now, you may ask, well, Lex, where do I begin getting to know myself? Well, perhaps start with answering a couple of these questions that I've put together. I want you to grab a journal, maybe a piece of paper, or jot this down in your notes on your phone, but answer them immediately. Don't save this for later. Do it now. Start now. There's no time like the present. And who knows, perhaps in the near future, I might create a mini workbook on how to begin the journey of getting to know yourself. And this type of free resource could house 100 questions to help open yourself up to, well, yourself. Now, embarking on a journey of self discovery is a powerful step toward living authentically and intentionally. And these questions are designed to guide you through reflective and actionable steps and have practical exercises that will help you understand yourself better and create a life aligned with your values and aspirations. So let's begin. And pause if you need to jot these questions and actionable steps down, and then follow along on Instagram to see them there as well. And we're going to start with foundations of self-love and compassion because it's super important to have self-compassion, to practice positive self-talk, and to also practice setting boundaries. You know, there's examples of radical self-care practices beyond pampering, such as perhaps therapy or journaling. So my question would be, how do you show yourself compassion during difficult times? Maybe you can write down 3 ways you can practice self-love daily. Identify one boundary that you can set this week to protect your emotional well-being. Because by doing that, you can cultivate joy and inner peace. And my question on that would be, how do you distinguish between internal joy and external pleasure? Maybe you want to list 3 activities that constantly bring you joy and commit to doing one this week. In order to get to know yourself, you want to be understanding your weaknesses and then also building your strength. So perhaps reframing weaknesses can be seen as opportunities for connection and personal growth to yourself. So the question you could write down is, what are some perceived weaknesses or areas of doubt you've identified in yourself? Write down 3 areas of uncertainty or doubt you've noticed in yourself. And when you get to know yourself better, you begin to tap into your intuition and your body awareness. So, what habits help you listen to your inner voice? Perhaps you want to practice a mindfulness exercise daily to slow down and reconnect with your inner cues. By reconnecting with your inner cues, you begin to release what no longer serves you. And that's very important for identifying habits and relationships or beliefs that hinder that growth, because there's a power of putting boundaries in place because you protect your mental and emotional well-being. So the question you can write down is, how do you identify and remove toxic influences in your life? Perhaps you can write down one habit, one relationship, or one belief that might be holding you back, and then create a plan to address or release it. Include one actionable step to start. Feel free to answer these questions on the Instagram page. Share them with me if you're brave enough. Your identity will be concealed, but it could help somebody out there. And maybe by embracing your authenticity and imperfection will just help you get deeper into your self-acceptance. So, what does living authentically mean to you? Maybe write about a time when you embraced imperfection and what you learned from it. This will help you to navigate inner conflicts. And the impact of self-talk on decision-making and emotional well-being is immense. So perhaps your question around navigating inner conflicts would be, what personal narrative are you ready to rewrite? Is it a personal narrative of I'm too skinny, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that? But rewrite that. Are you ready to rewrite that? Reflect on an inner or recent inner conflict. Write about it and how you resolved it. Personal growth and reinvention is one of my favorite things. Reinventing yourself is so vital to do almost all through your life. You're never just one person because you are learning from failures and you're embracing your growth mindset. So, in order to do that, perhaps the question to ask is how has your relationship with yourself evolved over time? And write about a major life transition and how it shaped you. I did so in season 1, episode 0, explaining how a life threatening experience changed the trajectory of my life. Now, we want to explore your early influences because the impact of family dynamics, environment, and cultural influences definitely have an impact on how we view the world for the rest of our lives. So, what patterns from your upbringing show up in your life today as an adult? Maybe you want to write about one significant childhood memory and how it influences you now. Maybe identify one belief from childhood you want to challenge or let go of. Now, building a self support system can be tricky, but it really can be done. You want to do that by building daily habits that support your mental, physical, and emotional health. Mine is a slow morning, taking deep breaths. You're going to have to listen to Stephen Bartlett on that one. But the question around this would be how will you support your personal wellness daily? Perhaps you want to list 5 things you've been putting off and 2 grounded action steps for each. Self-discovery is a lifelong journey, but use this as a workbook. Maybe there'll be a free resource coming, so stay tuned for that. It'll be a living document, revisiting and updating your answers as you grow and as you change. And remember, the more you know and love yourself, the more aligned and fulfilling your life becomes. I guess what I'm trying to say is we have to be intentional about building our self awareness. Who doesn't want a safe, non judgmental connection in space and understanding? And if you cannot get it from outside sources, you sure need to learn to get it from yourself. Now, my face has changed a lot. It still has the same lines and curves, but now it has shades and freckles, spots and pigmentation. A map of life so far, in my opinion, that's well lived, but with many more moments to experience and live, with many more lines and wrinkles to create, blemishes to be had, and sun-kissed skin to embrace. Remembering that we can still be intertwined with each other while staying true to ourselves. And in doing so, giving each other the space, permission, and opportunity to be our complete and different selves. An ancient African proverb, Ubuntu. I am what I am because of who we all are. What makes us human is showing humanity to each other and ourselves. In essence, the word relationship is dynamic and multidimensional, emphasizing connection, interaction, and the way entities influence one another. That's it for now. I cannot wait for you to listen to the next episode. Remember to follow, share, like, and do all the things to stay connected. Share it with those you know will need to hear it. And here is to your health.